Well, why don't we, since we do actually have someone new, why don't we go around the horn and introduce ourselves a little bit? So, Alex, you're first on the list on the participants over here.
Cool. I'm Alex Clark. I don't know what position I am in this freakish organization, but I've been here a while now. What's that?
They never work.
All right, I muted Mike.
So
This is why we're here
Dayton,
till 11
Ohio.
o'clock.
I live in Dayton, Ohio. I'm leading the D-Guts tour and drive a 2006 Nissan Pathfinder that I absolutely just run into anything I can find. It's fantastic. Ross is about an hour away from me, and we've been scouting for that trip. So that's who I am. Who's next?
James.
Hey, what's up, man? James Kelly from Hershey, Pennsylvania. I drive a 2007 Sequoia and pretty much been on board for what now? Two and a half years, I think.
Yeah.
Been on almost every expedition except for Colorado. So nice to meet you, Nate.
Palco.
I'm Nick Palco. I'm one of the founding members. Been through 2 vehicles with the group. I started with a 2018 Colorado ZR2. And once everybody started getting a little excited about modifications and I had to sit around and do nothing, I opted to change it up a little bit. And I have a 2002 Toyota Tundra that I spend more than I make on. So it's fun.
I'm Ross. I'm relatively new here, so I drive a 22 Bronco that can tow any Nissan out of any mess.
It's a Ford, and it's in the shop right now.
That is in the shop, yeah, because it's been waiting on a front diff, but it still runs.
Then I'm Nick Cornell. I guess this is kind of my crazy basket of monkeys. It started out with Nick Palco and one of our other members, Camden, and Stephen Vilbert, if you see him on the page.
He doesn't anything worth talking about anymore, so don't
even he bought a car, but no, we just drove out into the woods. We did the Allegheny Shenandoah Overland Trail, and in like the first 6 minutes of going out into the woods, we did a river crossing that was no joke. I mean, close to 4 feet deep. It was obnoxious, and we got hooked. So from there, here we are. But Nathaniel, that's pretty much a good zoom 1,000-foot view of the regulars that frequent CAMO. So as you can tell, we're kind of a basket of deplorables, but in like a warm and fuzzy way.
I like it. I like it a lot. My people.
But so you have an Xterra. Where are you from?
I'm around Lexington, Kentucky. So
hell yeah.
Oh, you're close to me, bud.
Yeah, I'm kind of right in the middle of everything.
Nice.
Awesome.
Cool.
Well, you're close to me. Jonathan lives in the western tip of Virginia, so he's not too far from you or me, Nathan.
Yeah, and that region is one, like we've done the byway, but the Cat is something that I've been wanting to check out, and even some stuff into Tennessee I wouldn't mind exploring. So any knowledge that you guys have of that region is greatly welcome, because a lot of stuff now that I haven't had a chance to pre-run or explore, I'm really just shooting from the hip for. Now, like Green Ridge, which is coming up, and we can segue into that. I think that route's pretty self-explanatory because you pretty much just zigzag every dirt road in the forest. But the good news is, I think we're gonna have snow, fellas.
I'm in for that.
Yeah, I'm pretty pumped for that. I think it'll be cool. I think the stream crossings will be kind of interesting too, because we're gonna have snow and ice, plus it's rained a shit ton before that, so should be a good time. One I do have one interesting trip update, not related to Green Ridge though. So I was on an airplane today flying home from Denver, and I don't know if you guys are familiar with that Chat GPT. It's like a AI language.
Yes,
Carry on a full conversation. Remembers the last
That's
thing.
the bit of work.
it passed the bar the other day.
It
Did you
did.
hear
It
that?
did. So what I did,
Dog.
I prompted it and I said that you are the leader of a multi off-road vehicle excursion starting in Bangor, Maine, and heading into Cape Breton, Nova Scotia. Your goals are to travel on the most difficult and scenic terrain. And then I even told it like what vehicles would be there and what things it needed to plan for. I should have saved the script, but it spit out like legit routes, roads, things to check out, like a whole. I did take
Are you
some
serious?
yeah. And like a step-by-step day thing. It was like drive to here, sleep here this night. Really freaking cool, man.
Wow.
Yeah, I was blown. I did not think it was going to get that specific. And then I even asked it, I was like, can you expand on the 6-day itinerary? And it did. It went even deeper into like, take this road to get to this road. It's pretty cool.
ChatGPT did my meal planning. Still does. For when I'm
Wow.
wheeling, I told it I got a 42 cubic inch, whatever, fridge freezer and need something that'll last for this week. And it figured out how to make the best meals with limited fridge space.
That is awesome.
Fun stuff.
Where are you guys seeing this? I haven't tried it yet. Or
So if you I think what's the website, like chat.ai, I think.
Chat.openai.com.
It's that internet thing. It's that internet thing, Alex. Just Google it.
Hold on. Is that Matt? What's up, Matt?
Yeah, what's up?
It is. I
Matt?
finally made it.
wait,
What's up,
who? Is this somebody I don't know?
You don't know
Probably.
Matt and Mose?
No,
I
it's-
missed like a year of trips, so
I'm pretty confident you've met Matt.
oh Mosier.
Yeah.
I don't call him Matt.
I mean, it's not like you guys huddled up together and slept together while getting hunted by mountain lions or anything.
Yeah, really. Dude sitting there, he's like, "You want to sleep in my rooftop tent?" And I was like, "Yes." I don't want to get burrito.
And I acknowledged that his feet were hanging out of his bed rack. He was like, "Yep, coming up."
I just wanted to be in the place that the dog was and have two guns in the same spot.
There you go. Good old Riley.
But that's all I had as far as the Green Ridge and the Nova Scotia stuff. Alex, I don't think you guys have had a chance to get out and scout anymore for Erie.
We haven't. We talked about possibly going out this weekend, but I'm depressed and sitting here drinking wine instead. My plan is after Green Ridge, if my rig isn't totaled,
It won't be.
it won't be. We'll go out the following weekend or the weekend after that and scout the second leg. We got a little time, but time creeps up. So I'm hoping to have things mapped out by, let's see, we got to hit mid-April. So probably mid-March.
Nice. Yeah, I mean we have plenty of time, so that's cool.
Yeah.
I joined the chat kind of at the tail end of the Green Ridge conversation. Planning to be up there probably like the Wednesday prior, and I'm going to check out the creek crossings for you and see how they're doing. But the only ones that are did we update the trail from before?
Is
I
this
think I was
Matt?
thinking about it.
I left that little extra loop in, but we can just cut that off because like I said, I'm pretty sure that's gated. So who's wrenching on stuff other than Max is literally wrenching on stuff as we speak.
Great. I'm putting a 1.5 inch body lift on and the snorkel, and I'm recalibrating my coilovers before the Green Ridge tour. So we'll see what happens, but
I don't have anything mechanically, but tomorrow It's the only day that I can do this. I got to put my deck drawers in, which is a lot more involved than just setting the system in the bed. There's
Pretty
a
table
there's a lot of prep work for throwing it in there, but hopefully I can get it done tomorrow. Otherwise, I'll be doing it at night throughout the week. I think I'm slowly morphing into a real Instalander because I think I'm going to actually cook food this weekend too.
There you go.
I may
Welcome to the club, asshole.
I might eat something warm.
I finally got my cast iron seasoned, and I'm obsessed with it. So I might try and find a way to bring that.
Hell yeah!
Bringing the obligatory
You
pack.
haven't been bringing a cast iron?
No,
Really?
yeah, I found out the other day that apparently all the scratch marks I have on my Teflon titanium fucking backpacking pan I use are toxic.
Yeah, very bad for you.
So
He's not
Yeah,
worried
I'm
about
trying
him, about Riley.
right.
Just kidding. We all love Riley.
Mhm. I do have a new coffee maker. I'm really excited to bring on the camping trip though.
Same, actually.
Check this out. You might like this.
Did you guys get the Coleman propane thing?
No, I
Please
got
You did.
guy.
Oh, you got a Bioletti.
Yes,
Yeah,
I did.
nice.
Technically, I should be due for oil changes this weekend, but I don't know. It's cold outside, and I don't have a garage, so.
All right, Palco, take us away on shocks and coilovers for
All
off-road and overlanding.
So I, like Nick said, actually spent most of my day today freaking out about how I was going to keep this short, sweet, to the point, but kind of touch on what people wanted to hear, not necessarily what I wanted to talk about. So I kind of just wanted to go over like the main things that we all look at when we're looking to upgrade our rigs, whether it's for ride quality, just height, if it's a specific travel length that we're trying to achieve, or a specific type of tire or a size tire that we're looking to achieve. There's a lot of things that come into mind when you're looking at this kind of stuff. For me personally, my biggest thing has always been buy once, do it once, never do it ever again. I've done it way too many times with other vehicles and other parts of my hobbies that you find yourself always wanting to do one more thing after you've already done it once. So I'm going to kind of go into the benefits of cheaping out, the cons of cheaping out, the benefits of finding the middle ground, and the cons of finding the middle ground, and finally, why everybody should have a long travel rig. But that being said, let's get into it here. So the first thing that I want to talk about is emulsion shocks. So emulsion shocks are what most people are going to be having on their rigs when it comes to like a budget build. You're going to find those in your like your Skyjacker lifts or your lower end Bilsteins, things along those lines, rough country, yada, yada, yada. The reason why that's a cost-effective option is because your oil and your nitrogen end up mixed together inside the main shock body. So there's not a lot of tuning that can go on. It just makes it a nice tight package that is a cheap and easy thing to put together. It's like buying a paper plate. You get to use it for a couple times, but eventually you will have to throw it away. Again, this is for more of your mall crawlers, the people that just want to get a look out of the truck or your Jeep, as opposed to necessarily getting any function out of it. The problem with them ends up being that the nitrogen ends up and not having enough space to do its thing, which results in the higher pressures. Higher pressure equals high friction equals high pressure, or high temperatures equals a poor ride. So instead of you having the ability to force like oil separate from nitrogen through valves in the shocks, you're actually just sending a mixture of it, so it makes kind of an impossible task for it to do. So it's great for somebody on a budget, but you're not concerned about performance. A lot of manufacturers are actually discontinuing those. You typically see those in like the 2.0s. They're always going to be smoothies. So smoothie shock is always going to be like everything's self-contained. It literally looks like you have just a giant hood pin or hood shock, and you slap it on the back of it, and good luck. Moving on to the next, what most of you will have on your vehicles right now will be a IFP or an internal floating piston shock. So those are separated by a floating piston. So you have nitrogen on the top, from the top eyelet, and then the piston that goes to the actual eye of the coil or the shock itself will be immersed, I should say, in shock oil. So what's nice about that is then it makes the pressure a little bit more tolerable. It's more within more of a strict tolerance. So it's not gonna be like, oh, I have no idea what's shoving through here. My ride's gonna be a little bit more predictable. You have a little bit more ability to tune, but not as much because you have little room to move. So you don't have a lot of travel that comes out of these. It's just going to be more so I want a comfortable ride, but I don't necessarily need the temperature capabilities or the travel capabilities. But like I said, 95% of us have these on our rigs. The reason why they make sense is because we do not get into anything that requires high temperature resistance. We don't have to worry about shock travel because we're not necessarily taking a rig that needs to go through some crazy stuff. If we do, it takes us 30 minutes one time and then we're done. Like we aren't doing that for days on end. The downside to those, while you can tune it, your nitrogen is very difficult to access. So it's not exactly a walk in the park for you to go ahead and tune it if you feel like you need stiffer setups or if you need a looser setup. But the nasty part about them again is those are only rebuildable by the factory. So you're not going to have a secondary option like Joe Schmo that's on the side of the road that says, hey, I'll break open your shocks. I'll go ahead and revalve them, or I can fix that shaft that's cracked or something like that. It's expensive. Not an option, doesn't make sense. You might as well just buy another one. That being said, the average price for those ends up being, those are OEM fit. You're not doing extended travels. You're not doing anything like that. You're looking about like $150 to $210, depending on your brand and time of year. So it's what I like about those. They're adequate for all of us that mostly street drive. So not too many of us have a dedicated off-road rig. Most of us are either daily driving our vehicles or utilizing it 3 days, 4 days, a month on the street. I don't need a fully linked crazy stuff to go drive to Walmart. So that's adequate for mostly street-driven vehicles that see little to no high-speed off-road. They're a throwaway shock, like I said. So once they're worn out, you go get a new one. So again, that's always the excuse when you're getting your high mileage vehicles. Like for me on my Toyota, I bought it with 140,000 miles on it. First thing I did was these need to go by. So they went goodbye. So it's not something I try to rebuild or sell or anything like that. Just literally went in the trash. Sorry. My favorite thing to talk about is going to be the remote reservoir shock. The reason why I like talking about these is because it really allows you to kind of do whatever the heck you want to do with your shock tuning, what you're looking to do in terms of speed. You don't have to worry. These shocks are built for you to go fast. At the end of the day, they're built for you to go fast, or at least give you a little bit more tuning stability and understanding of what needs to be done. Why these are remote reservoirs and why these exist, it doesn't matter if they're a piggyback or if they're an actual separate standalone reservoir. You have the entire body of the shock that's filled with just shock oil. So there's no nitrogen mix involved with it. And there's a hose that links that shock body to the reservoir, which is again filled with shock oil. There's another floating piston, so it's the IFP that you have on your smoothie shocks, but This is in a separate reservoir, which then gives you the ability to tune your nitrogen a little bit more aggressively. You can run all nitrogen. You can run a barely a little bit of nitrogen. It's really just designed for you to be able to have full control over what you're trying to do in terms of tuning. The stable pressures that come from that allows it to keep the seals happy. They'll definitely last longer than your IFPs and your emulsion shocks. The reason why is, again, just because you're not having to worry about the constant abuse of high pressure tolerances. And your reservoir shocks also come in different sizes. So while most of your emulsion shock or your emulsion shocks and your IFPs are going to be like a 2.0, basically a 2.0, maybe a 2.5 from time to time, you're going to see anywhere from a 2.0 to a 4.0 and above when it comes to your reservoir shocks. The bigger the shock, the more oil it can hold, the faster you can go, or the more tolerance it has for jarring hits. So if you're rock crawling, you'll see a lot of the times they have these giant 4.5 shocks hanging off the side that really allows it to be tuned. And hey, I'm going to flex out and I'm going to jump off a 16-foot cliff and I want to be able to move afterwards. That's where you're going to see those come into play. Those also come with the ability to get, well, this is really my favorite thing, the DSCs. So you're, what the heck, the compression adjusters. So what that does is it allows you to adjust your compression of the shock, change your valving, not necessarily like that, but more so just closing valves. So you're not changing the main valving, but you're basically, imagine playing, if any of you are musicians out there, like a brass instrument, if you press a key on it, or a valve closes, it changes the path of the flow of the air. Same is going to happen when it comes to your shocks. Your oil is going to have a different path. So the closer, the more tighter that I get it, the harder it is for it to pass through. Sometimes that's in your benefit, sometimes it's not. These get a little bit more expensive. These really should be used on anything that should be, they're after your performance and comfort. And these are practically endlessly rebuildable, tuned. And your price point does jump about $100 per, from that 170 to about 280. But that's, again, looking at factory based options as opposed to anything else. Why did I talk about all the different types of shocks? Again, because each one of us has a different goal in mind and what we're looking to accomplish. For the most of us that have some form of cargo that goes with us, really making sure that we understand what we're putting on our bed and how that affects the performance of our shocks is going to be something that you want to pay attention to. Like if I have a gorgeous feeling ride and I have nothing in the bed of the truck, and I all of a sudden put a couple fridges, a max track, and a high lift jack and a spare, well, that's like 400 pounds I just added to the back of it. That's going to really change what your vehicle is capable of and how it's going to feel going over some of those bumps. Right now, still talking about shocks. I'm not going to talk about spring rates or anything like that. But realistically, you're going to be working on something that's, I want to get tuned. AccuTune is a great tool. I've found for just understanding what you need in terms of the weight of your vehicle. So for somebody like Matt, who carries literally the kitchen sink with him, when he goes to rebuild shocks, or if he goes to upgrade his shocks farther, he always wants to call in ahead, in advance, to a company that he's looking to purchase from, whether that's the actual manufacturer itself, or say like an AccuTune, or various 4x4 shops around the country. And just understanding your needs. What are your goals? What am I going after? How heavy is my rig? Again, buy once, pay once, cry once, I guess is what it's called. It's buy once, cry once, that kind of deal. I'd much rather do it right the first time than have to do it a couple times. From there, that covers your shocks. Coilovers, same kind of deal. You have all sorts of different types so that you can get into. You have ones that have your internal bypasses that Fox came out with. Those are cool. But same kind of deal that you run into when it comes to your typical IFP. The internal bypasses are going to be a little bit, you're getting a compact package. It sounds great on paper, but you're not going to be able to really beat the crap out of them for long periods of time. Again, none of us are going to have those situations where we're going to be running 400 miles or even 40 miles at 150 miles an hour where you're jumping over whoops and all that fun stuff. We're not going to run into that terrain anytime soon. But if you're looking to just have that as a high point in your vehicle, not having it being a failure point, looking into spending those extra couple dollars does actually make a better ride for you, your passengers, makes a cool talking point at your local Sonic meets and stuff like that. But realistically, it's just making sure that you stay within what you're looking to accomplish with the vehicle. When it comes to your coilovers, when you get into spring rates, it is not a cookie cutter adventure. I'm sure that Nick can attest to jumping around. I wish Steven was on this call. I wish he still off-roaded. But those two guys, myself, all have switched out springs more than we can, more actually than we have actually changed out our women. Nick and I specifically. But
Yeah.
I have like 3 or 4 sets of springs that all do the same thing, but in different weights because I couldn't make up my mind days before we were going to Vermont. But so I have a set of 600, I have a 650, I have a 700. I have a lot of different options for myself in case whatever reason I decide I need to change them. But again, it's one of those things like having extra tires. I'd rather have them, and in case I break one, I can do something with it, I guess. I'm never going to carry it on the trail. I don't know why I have them. I'm just going to say it just sounds cool in my head to say that I do something with them.
Can I ask you real quick?
Yeah.
So are you saying that you keep extra sets of springs around that you change out on your shocks before trips?
No, I don't change them out before trips. The reason why I have them is because I was dialing in just the feel and the height of the truck. The biggest thing that you have to realize again when it comes to different whether it's manufacturer's tuning that you have on the shock, is the weight of your vehicle. So again, they're not a cookie cutter out of the box fit for every single vehicle. So if I bought my I have 2.5 by 8 Fox factory race shocks. The reason why I ended up going with those because they're remote reservoir and they have the DSCs, which allows me to act cool and get out in the middle of the trail and change my shock tuning. That also being said, what I learned was once you put the weight on the ground, ride height's going to be affected by, again, the weight, but where you have your preload set and also your coilover length and the weight rating as well. So in my case, Solo Motorsports in California recommended that I do a 16-inch 700-pound spring because in their mind, hey, everybody jumps dunes. This will be fun. Everything will be fine. You're going to want a heavier spring. I like that idea, so I went with that. Got them, put them on. My vehicle didn't react well to the weight. I don't know what it was. I don't know exactly why. But I ended up with a ass load of preload to where I didn't have to necessarily have preload. I feel like that's an entirely different week conversation that I will not be able to get into and keep everybody's attention for. But there was no preload that was added. It was barely touching the coilover or the spring itself, the collar of the shock. But I was losing a lot of my ability to utilize that spring and the shock because the shock was too long for the spring at that point. So ended up swapping out springs. I got 18-inch springs with a 600-pound. It was 600 or 650. Might have been 600. The pound springs, and that allowed me to not go as aggressive on the lift. and it allowed it to squish a little bit better. So I had some preload, actual preload, not just like zeroing out and making it rattle around. But kind of to summarize my ramblings, realistically, the difference between an off-road shock for us and a race shock is just rebuildable and temperature control. You can get aluminum shocks, you can get steel shocks, you can get remote reservoir shocks, you can get ones, Fox live wires that automatically change on the fly, all that fun stuff. You can get messy real fast. Realistically, you just want something that fits your budget, fits your build, and fits what you're looking to accomplish. Because if you buy something that doesn't, like, I don't want to go to Amazon and buy whatever Alibaba recommends or Wish recommends. So I can get King with 2 G's off of Wish, and it'll save me $30 for these set of shocks. Oh wait, they're the size of a thumbtack. But no, you want to make sure that you're exploring all your options. You want to understand a little bit more about, like I said, the terrain you're going to be most on. Don't kid yourself into thinking you're building a race truck. But once you get past that, you'll be able to save some money, save some coin, save some face, and have a good time out on the trail.
Thank you. That was really good. And I think, when I first started putzing around with parts on the truck, in my head, especially in the rear, the shock like didn't matter, right? Like, oh, I'm not racing, it doesn't matter. But I can remember specifically, I think it was when we did might have actually been that Allegheny Shenandoah trip. And at the time I had like shackles, some janky shock setup. They might have been like Bilstein 4600s maybe, which actually I don't think are an emulsion shock, but for what we were doing and the amount of weight that I had in the truck and how soft my leaf springs were at the time, they were hitting a full stroke all the time. And I can vividly remember my brother-in-law was with me and he was like, dude, this thing's bouncing all over the place. I didn't really think anything of it, but I actually physically touched the rear shock and it was like hot to the touch, which was crazy. We weren't racing around or anything. We were just driving on like washboard roads. So definitely, obviously you don't need to have remote res Kings out on the trails. But it is a good idea to make sure that you do have something that's substantial enough that can handle the weight of your rig. I know Coney recently entered the market a little bit heavier with a new series of shock. I forget what the coating of them is, R something or another, but they're huge. They're like a 3-inch shock body, IPF, and they're cost effective. So that'd be a good place to look for that middle ground shock. And now here's why I like the middle ground shock in the overlanding world, right? And distance travel world. Maybe the most paramount thing when we travel is reliability, right? Well, when you get into these suspension systems that are leaving the daily driver realm and going into a race shock realm, they're probably going to mount with like a spherical bearing, which is great. That's tight. You're going to get less bump steer. You're going to have a more firm suspension feel. You're going to feel more connected to the road. The negative to that is when a spherical bearing wears out, you're sunk. It's not like a rubber bushing where the bushing might start to wear out a little bit. If you lose a spherical bearing, you're in trouble. And a spherical bearing typically is going to have a lot less duration of a duty cycle than a bushing. So it is something to keep in mind. And it's actually why I had purchased 8112s coilovers, remote res for the front of my Frontier. And I'm not even going to install them.
Are you kidding me?
No. So my ride, I'll be way too high. I'll lose a lot of droop. I will have to do not some sketchy things, but I won't necessarily like where the remotes will mount because The remote reservoirs are literally like, I don't know, 15 inches. They're insane. It's way crazy overkill. So they're also slightly too long. Like they'd fit your truck. I think they're 19-inch and end. So I don't know. I'll throw those up for sale for cheap because I'm dumb. My loss, your gain. But
So is that necessarily, so that's basically the reason why is not because they're an inferior product or anything like that. If I'm remembering correctly, the biggest issue that you run into is that because you're not running a kit and you're running basically I don't want to call it janky, but like the budget way of long travel, right? So you have,
I mean, I don't know if $2,000 box blowers or budget, but
well, it's different. It's not something that the market has accepted.
right. No, it's
I forgot about blowers, but for most people that just have a normal Titan swap, it's not the easiest to just find things to swap onto.
It's a long travel without shock hoops, which is really the issue.
Shock hoops.
Because if I'm in Nova Scotia and I break a shock, I want to go to Advanced Auto and get a shock. That's kind of where I'm at, which is why I should have taken a lap before I ordered those 8125s because they definitely, like, performance wise, they're way up here, quality wise, they're way up here. But for me, they definitely broke my philosophy of simple is better for travel purposes.
I'm a big fan of the exact opposite. So the next here are going to be like basically you're conscious, right? So like I'm on this side, he's on that side. I have the exact opposite philosophy. Like if I break something, I've done something definitely worth breaking things for. He made a very good point on my timeline today as it's my birthday, that I had the most, what was it, conservative and I forget what the other adjective.
Deliberate or something?
Something like that, yeah. But I'm not at all. I'm very much fly by the seat of my pants, and by flying by the seat of my pants, that means whether I'm losing my bed cover going 50 miles an hour down a fire road, or just not really thinking about things. But once I get into it, I'm overthinking. Trust me. Everybody knows that if I'm into something that I've maybe bitten off a little bit more than I can chew, I am 100% overthinking that situation, and I need like my blankie and a teddy bear to get me through it. But thank you. That's exactly what we were talking about. So that's just literally, that used to be my send it meter. So the if that flew off, I needed to take it down a notch, because usually that meant that I was going maybe a little bit too hard in situations. I never actually attached that. And if you look closely, I have a set of golf clubs in the back there too. Never know. I'm always prepared. But just not for anything that I'm doing at the time. But for me, I am a firm believer of that people have millions and millions of dollars of R&D into technology that is designed to go hundreds of miles over not less than ideal terrain in the middle of the desert, whether that's for really ruining my
Welcome, hi everybody. I jumped in.
Hey, nice to meet you, man. I'm Nick.
Wait, that's Mikey Barr.
That's Mike Barr.
I can't see him.
Sorry. Here, sorry. All right, start video. Okay, I'm in here.
I'm just guessing. I'm rambling, but
Hey, Mike Barr, did they finally run out of hot water in the showers?
No, I found out that I was spinning the thing too far, and that's why I never got hot water, because I turned it back halfway and I started getting hot water again.
Sorry, Nick. We had a little sidebar there.
Oh no! Ha! Aha!
Aha.
Aha!
Ooh.
Ah, that is a dad joke.
Yeah, I literally just like saw that you guys were still doing this today. I'm like, oh, I gotta hop in. I still got like fucking 5 hours till I'm home.
Listen, it's actually kind of fun. But again, just to kind of touch on what I was saying, like much like how it comes to as through the years with my like if I'm buying a performance vehicle, I trust somebody's R&D department to do the hard work for me. Nick is a prepper. Nick has a tendency to think that everything he's the reason why he had a job at the end of the day at UPS and I didn't was because that he thought of everything and by the book, right? So he was a expect the unexpected kind of guy, to directly quote the handbook. But in his defense, that's what he's doing. He's expecting that multi-million-dollar R&D department to be wrong. So when he's out in the middle of Nova Scotia, if he's out doing something stupid, which to this day I've yet to see Nick do something. Well, Vermont killed that streak. Yeah, but most situations I can't talk Nick into doing anything. But that be
way, Nick.
what?
You do it the wrong way. You got to taunt him. You got to
No.
say, "Hey, I want to go fast, you pussy," and then he goes fast.
Yeah, but for like 30,
Am I wrong? Am I wrong?
you have to be.
You missed the last hill climb event, Palco. We Alex and I climbed from like the highway to RPA in like I don't know, Mach Jesus speed.
But
it was
again, for me, I believe that shock companies know what they're doing, and I respect the fact that I'm going to never reach the level of tolerances that they have. If I go to the lengths that I do to research every English, I don't want to have to worry about it. I really don't. Nick likes wrenching on shit. He'll have it apart 17 times in the week before. He probably has it. He probably is nut and bolt checking this entire truck like it's the Mint 400 before this little jaunt around a state park. If I know him, it's probably not actually together. It's not actually together. But that it was like a $2 parlay. It's fine. It wasn't anything. But that being said, English, my friend says it's fine. But I
Point out that this is still being recorded. We need to be accordingly. This is, after all, right?
I feel like it's a good segue. You can understand how I live my life just by how I just discussed my shock preferences.
one gamble at a time.
Yeah, exactly. So, but Nick's not necessarily. He's a more methodical guy. He likes to make sure that he isn't the problem on the trail. I don't care. I really don't. So if I'm the problem, I have some form of towing service that'll come get my happy ass and take me wherever I need to go. But all that will take is one oopsie and then I will change. But until then, I will buy the most expensive things that I can possibly afford, put them on a 25-year-old truck and enjoy my life.
Peasant and brother.
Love it. Hell yeah.
Hell yeah. So I have to jump in. So one of the decisions I made when I built my most recent truck was, so backstory, the first truck I had was on payments. I had no intention of off-roading it. This dickhead I met named Nick Cornell and another one named Stephen Filbert convinced me to go on a trip to the Appalachians with them. And but when I bought this one, I was very budget conscious. I bought it for $2,900. It had 250,000 miles on it. I got all of the maintenance up to date. And then I took all of the shit that was laying around in my garage, i.e. a Bilstein 6112 kit that really needed some help. So I put it on a metal lathe and cleaned it up and everything else. And what I decided was that the 6112 served my needs much more so than the Radflow 2.5s that I bought. Now, I will admittedly say that I bought them used. They started leaking. They were noisy, so the spherical bearings were fucked. I hated the fucking things, but I didn't need them either. When we were in Colorado, I was on 6112s, and that thing was an animal out there. So I would say that those of us who wheel semi-hard, when I say semi-hard,
Like half chub.
half chub. Yeah,
But
yeah.
I think that there's the difference between like trailing and like pre-running.
Yeah, no, because most of us don't get over the speeds of 35 miles an hour off road.
I can't even get over 50 on the highway.
My truck doesn't even go over 30 on the trail. I need 5 miles.
My question is, if you're not doing that often, is something like the 6112, which is arguably a budget performance shock, is that a reasonable purchase? Or if you're doing that kind of shit and honing around on the trails on occasion, does it make more sense to go with a Fox shock or a King shock, something like that? I'm just curious what your perspective is, Nick. Palco.
Okay. My perspective on that is that I kind of briefly touched on that when it was when I was talking about tuning and the difference between like a IFP and a like remote reservoir. If you plan on hooning even in the slightest, I highly recommend getting a reservoir shock. Ride in anybody's upgraded shocks. Are you coming this next weekend?
Duh.
Okay. I will be there longer than I thought I could possibly be. So I'll be running basically glory rides if anybody is so inclined to die. But if you just want to just feel the difference between what you're running and just a different change in shocks. Camden Nichols, one of our other members, always loves switching vehicles with me. When I had Radflows on with the remote reservoirs, huge difference in between just his upgraded shocks. I think he had Bilsteins, but most Bilsteins that you run into, you're not going to have the tunability. You're just going to kind of they base their shock tuning off of like, it's kind of like an access port tune for a Subaru. It's not going to be great, but it's going to cover what you need it to and be ideal. Does that, for like most situations, does that make sense? Like
It's more of a Swiss Army knife instead of a surgical knife.
Yeah, exactly. So I run into the issue of I try to band-aid that situation with like having the dual adjusters on it, the DSCs. But realistically, when I built those shocks, I was like, please just make these so I can go as fast as humanly possible and not have to worry about anything. So I'm not necessarily set up for that crawly speed setup. I can mess around with it. I can get okay with it, but in reality, I'm never going to be better than probably Nick's shock setup is probably pretty comfortable. I've never ridden in Nick's truck when he's Cornell, when he's been wheeling, but most of the people that I've swapped trucks with or anything like that have said it's a totally different feel. So I will continue this conversation in the field, so to speak, by saying, okay, you do this section and then now hop in my truck. We're going to go do this. just for the sake of, I just like driving around on pillows at high speed. If I go low speed, I'll feel it a little bit harder just because of the fact that I have it set up so tight. But to basically round up your conversation starter, your 6100, 6100s, your 6112s, jack of all trades, master of none. You get into your remote reservoir shocks, it gives you more flexibility and it gives you more space for things to move. And most tunes that you're going to have on your shocks that have the reservoirs are going to be designed for that middle ground. So like Joel's tune, he just bought it off the shelf. If anybody, I don't know if anybody's actually wheeled with Joel other than myself and Nick here. Okay. But he has Kings and he has remote reservoirs. But his are tuned for, I have no idea what.
The highway.
Yeah.
The highway.
Highway.
Yeah, Nick can attest to that. So I don't think he has adjusters to really accommodate for any changes that he might run into. But most shocks off the shelf are designed for just like overall comfort on the road. If I'm trying to bomb a trail, it's going to feel like shit on road, or I'm going to feel like I'm going to roll over. It's really just dialing in your particular setup and spending that extra couple bucks to get it tuned, or again, dialing back to AccuTune, they actually offer free shock tuning if you work with them from the get-go. So, hey, I want a set of Fox shocks. This is what my weight of my rig is. You can really get into it. You can blow your brain out with all the measurements you can offer them, or you can give them a call and tell them what you're looking to accomplish and what you have. They've seen it enough times to where they can just build whatever you were looking for and kind of tune it towards your goals. So if I'm looking to go fast, looking to go slow, crawl, jump, gives you some flexibility.
That's
The
awesome.
the biggest downfall of the 6112, which doesn't affect me really at all, or Alex, I don't really think either, is that Bilstein, I think in everything 6112 and below in their product line is all digressive valving, which is fine in slow crawling. You really won't feel it. Maybe if you fall off of a ledge or something and have a full shock stroke, you'll feel it firm up. It's excellent on the highway, and especially good towing, I think, from when I ran them. But where they blow is when you get into the washboards and you're really flying around, because I think that they generate more heat than something like a progressive or a linear rate valving. But it's one of those things where 95+% of the purchasers of the 6112 are not going to be doing pre-runner style driving, where that digressive valving is going to cause, discomfort. But in Palco's case, in that 5%, it would piss him off to the point where he'd probably take them off after the first run with them on.
Well, I got a question. Here's an interesting one. And I got my voice back temporarily, so this is good. I do a lot of towing, right? So on the 4Runner, I know it's not throwing my motorcycle on the back. I squat bad. They make something called a 5160, which is a 5100 with the remote reservoir. Obviously, I need to upgrade the rear coils because I need to get more, more punch back there. At that point, should I just upgrade the shocks too and put remote reservoirs in, because it will just help mitigate some of that extra weight? Because instantly I put 500-600 pounds of weight back there on that trailer hitch with that bike.
Your spring's going to make a bigger difference than anything else. I can't remember for the life of me if that has springs. Is it like a perch? Do you have springs like a?
It has icon
Oil spray
with Bilstein 5100s.
I think the question, Nick, is the question you're asking is it coilovers or springs solely?
No. So does he have? I know he has a link set up, right? You're like a 3-link from factory, right?
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah, there's no leaves.
There's no leaf. It's a coil on the back, but I'm pretty sure it's a coil separate from the shock.
Right. So yeah, okay. That's what I was asking. So you have like realistically, if you're squatting, how often are you going to be using that vehicle, particularly for your towing?
Well, since I've made my truck really unusable by adding the rear carrier on, and I can tow absolutely nothing now, the 4Runner has become the go-to tow vehicle for the past every week I need to move something.
Okay.
So
I mean,
I would do
that-
airbags then.
yeah,
I can't find them for the 4Runner. I
that
don't
just
really have space for
helper
them.
airbag. The biggest thing that I run into is these kinds of questions are like my brother and my dad. Like when I take the truck up and their question is, okay, you're planning on doing this. What is that going to do for your towing capacity? I have no freaking clue. I really don't. That's something to where I would like to look more into to understand so I can have these conversations with others and have an intelligent answer.
Yeah, because I'd say for me, when I'm looking at suspension, 50% of my suspension's got to be dedicated to towing no matter what I'm driving. I have too many
Whoa.
business stuff not to be towing. So for me,
Well,
that's
right.
important.
Sorry.
I would do airbags. I'm agreeing with everybody else that has said that. That is something that has popped up on a lot of the forums and a lot of the pages that I'm active in. If you are questioning what you need to utilize them for, or you don't know, like you could go my route and have 18 sets of springs. You could. But nobody has the time of day to swap them out. Hey, I'm going to be towing today. I'm going to put my 700-pound springs in the back. Now I'm going to be overlanding today. I'm going to put 650s because I'm not going to have something on my hitch. Or I'm going to be driving solo with nothing in the bed. Now I need 500-pound springs. Like if you have the airbags, it doesn't take up any space outside of like the compressor that you probably will have to install somewhere. But it's something to where like Nick's pulling up now, you have the airlift situation. It should be like $400, right? For like a kit.
They
Yeah,
don't inside the coil too.
I know they make them now that fit inside the coil springs to assist when needed.
Yeah,
that makes a lot of sense. That's exactly what you would need because then you can
And honestly, dude, for all the shit like that you're gonna bring to Nova Scotia, to not jar your teeth out with spring rate might not be a bad idea to look into bags.
I don't think so. Yeah. Honestly, probably is because like right now the car rides beautifully. It's not like it's messed up, but I feel like if I put a stiffer spring in with different rate, man, it's going to just be a harsh ride when it 90% of the time when we're driving around town. But if I had bags in, then I could just adjust it as I need. Oh my god!
I mean, bro, they're 50%.
Yeah, all you need is a management system, or you can run I know guys that run bicycle pumps.
Yeah, you're into that for under. I mean, you could run that off of an ARB setup. You can run it onboard air and be done.
Yeah, dude. I mean, at least if you're only gonna spend 40, $100 on bags, at least get the fancy ass wireless.
How much? I'm actually interested. It might be like $600.
Let's see if I can find a retailer online here.
Can
Amazon.
you manually control each individual one?
That is badass. Yeah.
$600.
Yeah, I know a couple people that ran them on like bagged S10s with the wireless kit and having the ability to like, one side of the truck's a little more loaded than the other, 2-3 extra more pounds on one side, you level your handling out.
Or level the rooftop tent.
Yes.
Yeah, dude. Yeah.
I run bags on every wheel, so airbags are lifesavers.
Dude, that's a really good point about leveling yourself for a tent with bags.
Well, that new off-road camper runs the airbag system on each individual torsion axle now to self-level.
Nick, you don't need airbags though if you have enough max tracks.
I was waiting for it. I knew it was coming.
But here's the thing: the max tracks will actually be more expensive than this setup.
Yeah, literally.
Now, question for our R&D guy here. You guys were talking the coilovers. high and low. Now, like off-roading, daily driving, and like, our casual trips, not like hardcore wheeling because land yachts don't fit in the middle of the woods. I found a 4-up, 4-down airbag system like I have with my rig for my pickup truck. Now, would you be against bags over versus coils on like trail riding situations though, like that on like Green Ridge and where there's no coil spring, you replace it fully with an airbag system?
My biggest question on that is what happens if something fails? So I will play devil's advocate with Nick's idea of how he goes about things. Yes, it's maybe just some Gorilla Tape or something like that and fixes things. But at the same time, like what happens if I get a rogue stick that jams up or something like that? That might be under preparing or I don't know if I want to say it like that, but like,
Well, think about, I mean, we all came from like the stance car world, right?
yeah, no,
Think
exactly.
about all the guys on bags in the wintertime. Like it was something was always broken.
Well,
It's a matter
they're
of-
running, like I know with my rig personally, like even my cabs on bags, I know cold winter, the plastic airlines and the valves are just absolute garbage. They explode.
Hold on,
But like my axles are on my work truck are all brass fittings. And I was thinking about doing a similar setup on my Ford because it's $500 and ride quality is like phenomenal on bags. But my concern is like, would that impair me on camo,
I
so
don't
to
really,
say?
I don't really think you
I wouldn't say it would impair you. I'm going to stick to my guns on what I believe in. And I mean, Nick's a big KISS guy. To keep it simple, stupid. I'm obviously the devil's advocate for not. But the biggest thing that I have to say ends up being like, do what makes you happy and what you feel like is going to be a simple solution to what your problem is. Because I don't want to ever do something that puts myself or the trip in jeopardy. But at the same time, like I'm willing to try new things. Anybody else have a better thought on that?
No, I mean, I think, I don't think that the first time out, like your bags are gonna fail. Now you're talking rear or front?
Front,
I guess front
because my
the rear
TTB is like horrible
yeah,
design.
I mean, as long as the hardware is like you said, I would imagine brass lines. One thing I would look into is like a air water separator in the system. I think that's kind of a popular thing in the cold climates for keeping the bags healthy. But I mean, like you said, semis are running millions of miles every year on bags without an issue. So I don't think it would be like a don't do this thing. And hell, I mean, I don't know enough about that particular setup, but I mean, you would technically have like ride height control.
Yeah, because
on-
that's my
on a
big thing
TTB.
is my drop bracket for my TTB in the center. My first day out the Green Ridge with it when I scouted way back when was I bent that bracket and it was an SOB to get the lift kit in at being that bracket was bent to get it off. And was the thing was like ride height to like stance up instead of down and tuck in. I could tuck that in and up if I were to have to, because coil springs are just horrible design.
I mean, again, me in that situation, like my experience with airbags is hit or miss. Like my Jeep now has air ride suspension. I love it. I do like the ability to change my ride quality on the fly. My Benz was the absolute worst. I love that thing to death, but the only issues that I ever had with that thing was the air suspension, and that came down to the management system all the time. It's just one of those things that if I was going to keep that car, I would have switched over back to coilovers. Sacrifice the ride quality for the ability to have something that's more reliable. That's me. I don't like finding a round peg and trying to squeeze it into a triangle shaped hole. I like just finding the best option and running with it, but it's up to you.
I will say this though, if you get like that airbag kit that Nick was showing, like if that fails, that still doesn't mean I can't get off the trail or I can't.
No, that 100% means you still have the springs. You have the helper system.
I would never.
That's why I like that.
Yeah.
You have the it's just a helper system. It can increase your so what I would do in that situation is buy the lowest possible spring rate I can enjoy. So if somebody says I run 500-pound springs, run 450, and then use your helper airbags to tune it from there. Or because you won't be able to, if let's say I get a 600-pound spring, I'm just using ballpark figures or round numbers just for the sake of argument, but let's say I get a 600-pound spring, and that's the factory default, so to speak. I can't go lower anymore. I'm kind of locked into that being my ride quality, but I can go higher if I'm going to be towing. So if I have a 600-pound spring and I'm comfortable with that, then yes, stick with that spring quality, and then only have the airbags inflated if you need them when you're on your towing adventures and things like that. I honestly think that would be the best move.
Yeah.
It'd be like putting bags on your Dodge.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I want to swap them out. Like I know when I worked at Mercedes, you complain about your suspension never working. We got to keep struts in stock because if the management system didn't blow out, then the suspension would blow out. Like there's nothing but constant issues, and people come in with their cars slammed on the ground.
Oh yeah. Look at the Land Rovers.
Yeah, it just doesn't work.
Yeah. But yeah, I think the most important thing would be that whatever your springs are when you're running the in-coil bags is that it's livable if your bags don't work. And I think in your case, especially with the 4Runner, the springs are fine now. It's just with towing, and then at any time if the thing's really loaded up. But for that price, you can't beat it.
No.
It'd be the same concept of a dually with helper bags hauling a camper. They're not inflated when he's not hooked to his gooseneck.
Again, if I blow a bag in Nova Scotia, I still can get home just fine. So that's
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a assisting device.
Yep.
It's like a penis pump.
no, it's like
Pretty-
having yeah.
Wait,
All right,
James has a cat? Sorry.
I was just gonna say I was gonna kill our
that's
recording.
his.
And we can be
No, I have a dog.
No, I have a giant cat that's